All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's regular council meeting of Tuesday, May 7th of 2024. And welcome to those that are watching on the cable channel. And with that, I would ask for a roll call, please.
Finkler. Here. Hammer.
Here.
Lawson.
Here.
Motive.
Present.
Reed.
Here.
Relke.
Here.
Rostad.
Here.
Okay, and if you would join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I acknowledge this meeting was posted and noticed according to law.
Okay, thank you. And I would entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll move to approve tonight's agenda.
Alder Motive will second.
Motion by Alder Finkler and a second by Alder Motive to approve tonight's agenda. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda approved. Correspondence and communications. Is there anything for the regular council meeting? Susan? Okay. Oops, I'm sorry. All right, with that, then we will move on to consent agenda, and that would be to approve the council and committee of the whole minutes from April 16th of 2024 and April 23rd of 2024. Approve an operator's licenses for 2023 to 2025 licensing period for Kelly Marie Talbot, and the mayoral appointments to the City of Columbus Board and committees and commissions.
Alder Motive will make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Alder Motive and a second by Alder Lawson to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, consent agenda approved. Next, for under new business now is number 1, consider and take action on the recommendation of the selected consultant firm, Bray Associates Architects, to complete a feasibility study and space needs assessment for a combined public safety building. And you had that information that was presented along with the contract.
Alder Finkler moves to approve Bray Associates to complete a feasibility study and space needs assessment for a combined public safety building.
Alder Rolke will second.
Okay, it's a motion by Alder Finkler and a second by Alder Rolke to approve the recommendation of Bray Associates.
I have a question. Do we need to put the amount in there so that it's clear? And then roll call.
Okay, the amount of the study is $28,500. So if you, Alder Finkler would like to amend your motion.
Yes, Attorney Johnson, you're thinking? Yes, you're good? Yeah, okay. I will move to amend my motion to approve Bray Associates for the amount of $28,500 for the feasibility study and space needs assessment.
I will still second that.
Okay. Any further discussion on this?
Just one question.
Sure.
From our side, have we identified a project manager to work with them?
We've started a discussion about a team that would include, on the police side, Chief Weiner and Lieutenant Ward, thank you. Chief Hazeltine will be on the committee as well. He's working on who will be the other representative from fire, and myself will be that kind of leadership team as we move forward. I also Haven't had the opportunity to speak with her yet, but I think it would be good for Crystal to be with this group, so I'll talk to her more about that later this week.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, with that, could I have a roll call, please?
Reed.
Aye.
Rostad.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Motive.
Aye.
Finkler.
Aye.
Relke.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay, next on the agenda is to consider and take action to allow the city treasurer to pursue issuance of general obligation bonds in the amount of approximately $2,500,000 for city streets and stormwater projects and obtain city or sewer revenue bonds, or STFL, which stands for what? The
State Trust Fund loan.
Okay, thank you. Debt in the amount of approximately $961,000 for sewer projects. And again, that was discussed last meeting.
Alder Motif will make a motion to allow the city treasurer to pursue issuance of general obligation bonds in the amount of approximately $2,500,000 and to obtain revenue bonds or an STFL in the amount of approximately $961,000.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Alder Motif and a second by Alder Rosted. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor?
Roll call.
Is this a roll call?
It should be.
Should be? Okay, roll call.
Finkler.
Aye.
Reed. Aye. Rostad.
Aye.
Motive.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Relke.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay, next on the agenda is to consider and take action on the award of contract to Rent.Fun LLC for the kayak rental program at Rotary Park. The questions that we had from last meeting have been addressed, thanks to David Bennett for getting all that information. So,
Alder Finkler moves to approve or award the contract to Rent.Fun LLC for the kayak rental program at Rotary Park.
Alder Rolke will second.
okay, motion by Alder Finkler and a second by Alder Rolke to award the contract to Rent.Fun LLC. Any further discussion on this?
So this
Alder-
also has an amount. Do we need to say the amount here?
Nothing comes from us, so I'm not sure.
Payment is coming from the Rotary and the tourism, which approved for $9,500.
Conversation, sorry.
Always.
Oh.
Okay. So, roll call, or did you?
Please. Waiting for the roll call.
Okay, all right. So could we have a roll call on this then?
Reed. Aye. Motive.
Aye.
Finkler.
Aye.
Rostad.
Aye.
Relke.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay, thank you. Next is to consider and take action on, to approve the revised job descriptions for city treasurer, human resources administrator, city clerk, recreation director, community and economic development director, community center manager, and communications and economic development coordinator. And if Matt is here, if there's any further questions for approving this.
Alder Rolke will move to approve revised job descriptions for city treasurer, human resources administrator, city clerk, recreation director, community and economic development director, community center manager, and communications and economic development coordinator.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Alder Rolke and a second by Alder Rusted to approve the revised job descriptions. Any discussion on, further discussion?
Aye.
Alder Motif?
I just have a comment. I support what you've done here. I support the new descriptions. I just have an issue with the one for the communications and the economic development coordinator. I feel like you're tailoring that for a person, and similar to what I said with the rec department changes that we made, they should be separate and not combined, because we should be tailoring for needs, not people.
Alder Lawson?
All the changes that you've made here, do they align to the reorg?
Good
you
question.
kinda outlined before?
Good question, thank you. So the first 5 on the list, I'm not going to list them all, some of you have painfully listed during the meeting. Were just editorial updates. Some of them hadn't been reviewed in at least 12 years, and as you see, they were all put in a standardized form with standardized language, and Stephanie Mache, our Human Resources Administrator, did a lot of the lifting along with the staff in making sure that these were up to date and accurate. The next step in this, as we've talked about, is getting a annual review process in place for all city positions. The first step in that annual review process is to review their job description, identify if there are any needed changes or discussions that need to occur about their job description. So we've now instituted, once we get these up to where we want them, there's an annual review process as part of that job description, or a look at the job description as part of that annual review. In terms of the reorganization, this aligns with the discussions that we've had on the reorganization. At this time, we've reorganized 2 department heads and put them under an existing department head. I reserve the right to have further discussions with you in the future about continued efforts for reorganization, but at this point, I think this is a good first step, and we'll kind of see how things move forward before any other discussion on reorganization. Again, as we've discussed, the goal has been creating collaborative work teams and work groups, and those are in place, and I think these reorganizations help foster that move forward as well.
Alder Russell?
Under the Recreation Director, page 3, special requirements. If desired by the city administrator, is that common practice for wording?
I'm going to have to get there, so just give me a moment. Said page 3?
Yeah. Under requirement.
I think that's a good catch. I would support eliminating the if desired by city administrator for both of those items. Be page 3 of the Recreation Director. Under special requirements, there's 2 statements that say if desired by the city administrator. I think those are both important pieces that I don't like that language, and that's a miss on my part.
So should it be under qualifications? Or do we want to make it a requirement?
I'd prefer to defer to Stephanie and involve her in this discussion of whether those are under qualifications or special requirements, so we can bring this back at a future meeting. Just this one, though, if you wouldn't mind approving the others.
Do I need to modify then to exclude the Recreation Director?
If you're going to do a friendly amendment, you can just redo your motion. Otherwise, you can vote this down and then redo it again.
It's probably easier to just amend my motion, so.
Can I offer another suggestion?
Yeah.
Is that you could direct staff, in terms of myself and Stephanie, to make, you could approve this with our ability to make this revision in accordance with Stephanie's recommendation.
I like that. That's fine. Then I move to, where am I here? I move to approve the revised job descriptions for city treasurer, human resources administrator, city clerk, community and economic development director, community center manager, and communications and economic development director, coordinator, excuse me, and approve the revised job description with the changes we discussed here tonight for recreation director.
Alder Motive will second.
Okay, motion by Alder Wilkie and a second by Alder Motive to accept the job descriptions with the modification. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next is to approve the claims in the amount of $728,857.10.
Alder Motive will make a motion to approve the claims in the amount of $728,857.10.
Alder Finkler will second.
Okay, motion by Alder Motive and a second by Alder Finkler to approve paying the claims. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, roll call.
Finkler.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Rustad.
Aye.
Rilke.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Motive.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay, reports.
Just briefly, we've started our NeoGov implementation. We're 2 weeks into that, meeting with them on a weekly basis. We have a small team internally that consists of myself, Stephanie, Amy Jo, and Jacob from the utility, as we looked at those as two of our primary hirers for the city, and trying to start small and get a group with some core knowledge before we expand that out. So I think the implementation schedule goes for the Insight, the HR portion of it goes through the end of January. We'll then implement, or end of July, I apologize. We'll then move into the learning platform and get that up and running. The last will be Perform. The goal is and that's the review process. The goal is to have that completed by the end of January so that we'd start with reviews in the first quarter of 2025, looking back on 2024 performance and starting that annual review process then by utilizing the software. So excited about that. The other kind of quick update I have is the mayor and I were able to attend an event hosted by Dane County on leveraging federal grant funds. A lot of tie towards sustainability efforts, solar, electric, some of the things the county's doing at their scale, some of which can relate to our community. Some of them are pretty big and ambitious with compressed natural gas and some of the things that they're really doing that are leading like the country in terms of innovation with some of their practices. So it was a good informational session. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. We have positions on the following committees available. There are 2 open positions for the Cable Commission. There is 1 open position for Zoning Board of Appeals, 1 position open for Plan Commission, and 1 position open for Board of Review. So anybody that would be interested in being on one of those commissions or committees and serving the community, please go to the online application that is on the city website. So thank you very much on that. Just, some citizens' assistance with keeping grass clippings off of sidewalks and roads, especially when you get heavy rains like what we've had. Stormwater is an issue. Getting rid of that water, the more stuff that goes into the pipes, the more of a hassle it is for that water to get away. Plus the fact that wet grass becomes slippery, and with young kids out riding bikes and people walking, it's just a good habit to clean up after yourself. Amtrak's new train, the Borealis, will be starting new operations on May 21st, and I encourage all council members, city staff, and citizens to come to the train depot to welcome the Borealis to Columbus. That'll be on May 21st again, and arrive at 4 p.m. or a little after. It's going to be kind of a quick stop in, they're going to deboard, board, and there'll be, maybe just a little bit in there, but they're not going to be here long. But it's still a good opportunity to welcome that train. Good opportunity for Columbus because that's an additional train to the Empire Builder, which currently goes through right now. So, okay. This coming weekend, citywide rummage sale this Thursday through Saturday. Oddfellows food truck event at Fireman's Park on the 11th. And then Redbud Day festivities on Saturday, May 18th. I don't know if the redbuds will still be hanging on to their blooms, but it's sure been beautiful in the town, especially when you look down the boulevard. So, and with that, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Alder Motif will second.
Motion by Alder Finkler and a second by Alder Motif to adjourn. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Anybody need a break, or should we just, okay, 5 minutes? 5 minutes. If you are attending tonight and you intended to speak We'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Columbus Common Council Committee of the Whole meeting. It is Tuesday, May 7th. Could I please have a roll call?
Finkler.
Here.
Hammer.
Here.
Lawson.
Here.
Motive.
Present.
Reed.
Here.
Relke.
Here.
Rostad.
Here.
I acknowledge this meeting was posted and noticed according to law.
Thank you. At this time, I would look for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll move to approve tonight's agenda.
Read a second.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion from Alder Finkler and a second from Alder Reed. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. I'm going to open up the floor to citizen comments right now. We do have a number of people signed up, so I am going to state that we're implementing a 3-minute time limit tonight. So I've got this. First person on the list is Shelley Albright. And if you could, please, when you come to the podium, state your name and your address.
Good evening, Council. Shelley Albright, 120 East Prairie. I actually put Lamb's Landing down, but I also want to say a quick thing about stormwater too, but I'll stay within 3 minutes. I just want to take this opportunity to thank the council members in advance for choosing to negotiate in good faith with the development and the developers this evening. I think it was 2018 was the last time that Columbus has had any significant housing development, and this will help increase our school numbers, and it will help increase the tax base, which will also help pay for all that fun stuff that we voted to finance tonight with the stormwater and whatnot. And then I also wanted to say I'm happy to see that stormwater is on the agenda tonight. That's really an issue that Columbus has to deal with, and I think we need to move forward with getting some work done and making sure that our homes stay unflooded.
Thank you. Okay, next name on the list is Jesse Pica Holst. You're not on yet. You'll have to push the button with the face with the lines. There you go. Nope. Nope. There you go.
That one.
There you
All
go.
right. Thank you. I just wanted to talk tonight about representation. What does that mean? What is it to represent somebody else? As a realtor, I represent my clients. I, as a fiduciary, need to inform them, give them all the relevant facts, and then execute their will, even if I think it's not in their best interest. I represent them. You're not here to impose your will either. You're here to represent the will of the community. And yeah, if the community is split about 50-50 on an issue, then it falls to you to make the judgment. But that's not what we're talking about here. The community has spoken loud and clear and for quite a long time on this. This isn't that old TV show, Father Knows Best, all right? This is a democracy, and you're here to reflect the will of the people. The will is very clear right now. To make a decision contrary to that broad will of the people is, in essence, a statement that you know better. You're saying that your reasoning is so vastly superior to those of every single one of your constituents that you alone are capable of making a decision. You're telling your friends and neighbors that you don't trust them to make decisions about their own community. And what about this other information that you allegedly have that the public doesn't? Why not share it? Is it some state secret or classified military information? Closed session has a specific purpose. It is to shield confidential contractual information. What it's not for is to mask contextual facts surrounding that decision, and certainly not to mask the rationale for the decision itself. And yet, time and again, people run for office in this town on the issue of transparency, and as soon as they get sworn in, something happens, and then all of a sudden, all the decisions are made behind closed doors. All the discussion happens there, too. Father knows best. And the neighbors shouldn't worry their silly little heads about it. What's worse is that this change seems to come about right after you get into office, and then it's almost like someone somewhere is giving you really unethical advice. The public has a right to know what this advice is. Where is it coming from? What's your rationale for flip-flopping? All we've heard over the last 15 months is shifting justifications that come only after the decision has been made, only to find out that those shifting justifications were also objectively false, over and over and over again. We've seen 3 people on this body tell potential voters in various ways that they wanted to preserve the farm, that they weren't into real estate speculation, that that was an inappropriate use of the government, only to change their minds once they got into office. And all this secrecy invites rampant speculation because you're not telling people why you're making the decisions you're making. It's unnerving. It's curious. It's weird. Who are you talking to? What are they saying? The public has a right to know.
Next name is Lori Larson.
Lori Larson, 565 Vista Circle. I really don't know where to start, other than I was very disheartened. I feel like we were duped in the last election. We elected some new people, and under one pretense, and now we're under the understanding that it's quite the opposite. Elections are very important, and when city people are duped like that, it leaves a real sour taste in your mouth. And it will affect future elections, you can be sure of that. The last time I was here at a meeting, and I was parked out here, and I pulled out and turned on the side street by I think it's called the Friends of the Library. That street is horrible. The potholes, it just throws you all over the place. You could lose a small pet in some of those. Why are we getting into something like this big development when we can't even take care of the streets that we already have? I'm also under the understanding that with this Lamps Landing LLC, that their proposal was they pay $1, and then they basically get what was $560,000, and then there's another $500,000 that they want from this city. So, folks, that's $1 million that we're letting some company come in and build something, and we know nothing about them, how they operate. Do they have any current lawsuits out against them? How do they do business? Are we going to be left a couple years from now and it doesn't work out, and we're going to be left to pick up the mess? The old saying, you can't put 10 pounds of you-know-what in a 5-pound sack. I feel that's what you're doing with that dingy property. You can't put that many houses, those big of apartment buildings, put all those people together. Where are the driveways, and where are they going to get out onto the street? How can you put people in those houses? Aren't going to want the traffic from all the apartment buildings. The apartment buildings aren't going to want the houses there. They don't have a view. They don't have anything. I feel like it's cramming 10 pounds of you-know-what into a 5-pound sack.
Next on the list is Sandy Curtis.
Hi, I'm Sandy Curtis from 100 Brookside Lane, and I'd just like to thank the council for continuing their attention to the stormwater efforts in the city. The city made a significant investment in a stormwater study that was completed in 2022, and in order for that investment to pay dividends, we have to implement the projects that were part of that study. And some of the funding decisions that were made tonight will help to move that forward. And I would ask you to continue in the future to look to the next steps that we have. And I would just thank you for your attention and for continuing to make the city a good place to live. Thank you.
Next on the list is John Salzwedel.
Hi, everybody. John Salzwedel, 841 Park Avenue. Most of you guys kind of know me. I'm a historic preservationist at heart. Big-time advocate for saving the unique farmstead that we have within our city limits. We have one farmstead within the city limits, and that's a pretty significant cultural icon. It's been around for a long time. Now, not too long ago, the council, and I know there's a couple new guys, so welcome, but the council had scoffed at a proposal for the Meister, the old Ford Meister Ford dealership. Somebody wanted to buy that for $1, and everybody scoffed at it. So that's ridiculous. We're throwing that one out. So now we, the citizenry of Columbus, are scoffing at the council for entertaining selling property that you used $561,000 of ARPA funds for $1 to a developer. And now adding insult to injury, he's asking for another $500,000. That's a gift of over $1 million from the city of Columbus. So I'm just asking, you know, it just seems like, are we in a bizarro world, or is this the introduction to the opposite sketch? What's going on? Up is down, it's crazy. And I would ask the council to be prepared then. People are going to get in line and say, well, I would like $1 million from the council. So just to echo something, I had a conversation with Joe Hammer not too long ago, probably about a year and a half ago, where Joe, you had said that you didn't think it was a good idea for the city to be involved in real estate, and I agree with that. So I think it would be ideal to pull out of this negotiation with Lamps Landing. Attorney Johnson recently said that the council can reverse things if they so choose to. And I'm all for selling that property to somebody who wants to preserve it. Again, about 18 years ago, my wife and I bought a house that many people said we should bulldoze. It's too far gone. Shortly after that, it got nominated and was put on the state and national register of historic places. So that dingy property has significance and it matters. So I hope you take some consideration and listen to the people speaking. Thank you.
Next on the list is Ann Ehlenfeld.
I'm short. Ann Ehlenfeld, 160 Inglesby Street. First of all, I'd like to say that I am appalled that our Columbus City Council appears, now I'm not saying you are, but appears to allow themselves to be bullied. Also, I'm very disappointed that I encouraged many friends to vote for Mr. Lawson and Mr. Rosted, who now appear to be just the opposite of what I learned they were before the election. Is it because of the bullying that might be going on? But all I know is I've lost my trust. Is it because of fear? Because fear is rampant throughout our country, especially through bullying and especially in elections. It's a major problem, especially in voting. The reference to the Dingy family here, in reference to them, I was hoping my hometown would be above letting that kind of thing happen, bullying or anything like that. And I wish they would give serious consideration to the men who wanted to develop something here. I don't understand why they were hardly even considered. And now, A future refusal to vote is probably on tap. And it sounds like it's a vote that is just not stop the negotiations, but to keep them going. And that, I feel, is a serious mistake, especially for Columbus in a lot of ways. Trust is one, and that's huge. It's a huge disappointment for me and for the majority of Columbus if you continue what you're doing. And I'm also wondering why, as a city council, you have so many closed sessions. It seems like I'm not the only one that's questioning closed sessions. Why do you have to be so secretive? I want to understand. You don't have to answer me. I know you can't. But I don't understand why the Dingy deal is such a big secret. Are you following the Department of Justice on the issues of the issue of open meetings? Do you know what they say? If you don't, may I ask you to read the statutes about that? And then if you find that you are not following that, it would be helpful if you would follow them in the future. It would be good for all of us. Thank you.
Next on the list is Ben Sweatmore.
Do you know what happens when cities or any
I'm
type
sorry,
of...
could you please provide your name and address?
Yeah, Ben Sweatmore, 448 West Mill Street. Do you know what happens when cities or any type of area grow? Well, it has its benefits, increased revenue for the city, increased business, etc. But there are also more dire consequences. Human history has showed us time and time again that increased growth is the formula for high crime. Well, you might say that happens everywhere, and perhaps that's true. So this isn't to say don't expand Columbus, it's rather to say, do you think our police department is really equipped to be dealing with murders, rape, robberies, drug trafficking, etc. on a regular basis? The answer is no. Expand your police force first, then expand the community, but don't destroy historic properties to do so. That's the height of foolishness. Columbus has been increasing majorly in size for decades, especially since early 2010s. Heck, Columbus is so old it's been increasing in size since founding 185 years ago. Historically, I don't think anyone has ever been against expanding the community, at least not in large droves. If we expand this much this fast, I can promise you what will eventually happen. Overexpansion leads to big business, bigger communities lead to higher property taxes. Nobody will be able to afford to live here anymore. Big business will squash the small competitors, and Columbus will die a silent death. Is this really what we want? Many historic structures of Columbus's past have come and gone, but many of the important ones still remain. Why? Because largely our citizens are smart enough to see the value in historic preservation. The fact that 80+% of our households keep telling you to save Dingy is proof of that. In 1990, the Whitney Hotel was in a very poor state, and the city wanted to demolish it. But citizens spoke up saying that it should be saved. The city listened to them, and as a result, it still stands today. Otherwise, what will be the next demolition target? Olivet Church? Whitney again? Some other downtown building? Or perhaps even the building we are standing in right now? The current council has a decision to make. Every member will be remembered for how they voted on this. Do you want to be remembered fondly for doing the right thing that the majority of the citizens want? Or do you want to sabotage your own reputations and tell 80+% of this community that their opinions do not matter and that they are not worth the time of day to deal with? Choose wisely and save Dingy.
Next is Ruth Hermanson.
Good evening. I'm Ruth Hermanson, 986 Warner Street, Columbus, Wisconsin. I'm happy to hear, I didn't put that down, on the stormwater. I just advise you, please don't just ship it down the Crawfish River. Our sea levels, water table, everything's rising. It'd be nice to consider retention ponds of some sort. Next, I'd like to talk from my heart on the Dingy property. There's two sides of this. Of course, the emotional side and then the number side. I'll first start with the number side. In any good business, you run the numbers. Let's run the numbers. For the percentage of people that have come up here in the last year and a half and have spoke for it, and then there's been maybe 5 that has spoke, saving the Dingy property, and maybe 5 has spoken about development of that. That's a big number, and I hope you'd all consider how much, sheer guts it takes to get up here and speak, okay? And there's how many people behind that feel that same way. I do think there's better places for the money spent. And if you're going to spend over $1 million on this, 500, just run the numbers, that's close to, I took $800,000 divided by 21 houses, and that's $40,000 a lot just to get this off the ground and take down the barns. What about everything else? And that's city taxpayer money, $40,000. How much is a lot for sale in the city of Columbus? Now, how much is the developer putting towards that? So your cost per lot might be $80,000. Well, that developer needs to make a profit. Has anyone run the actual numbers? Now, there's a development just south of there that is a beautiful development with a buffer from the highway. I'd like to know how much the city spent on those lots with the developer and created a beautiful new neighborhood. There's tons of acres in the city, within the city, and just adjacent to the city. They did a beautiful development on K, just south of the nursing home. It's beautiful, and people want to live there. It's a neighborhood. You're not right along the highway. Also, apartments. With the $800,000 I use for homes, you have $200,000 that you're putting to this apartment building. I've had apartments since 1985 in Columbus. We bought them because no one else wanted this old house made into 2 flats during the Depression. $200,000 for an apartment building gifted to the developer? I think there's better places for that, and it's a high-end apartment. I'm sorry, people in Columbus cannot afford $1,800 a month for rent, and that's the starting level. Good luck with this.
I think that was my time.
Yeah, that was your time. Yeah. Okay. Next name is Katharina Steer.
Hello, my name is Katerina Steer, and I live on 559 North Spring Street. So I was made aware that the new elders appear to have decided to vote in favor of developer proposal. Please reconsider your decision, since the people of Columbus have voted for you as our new elders. So what I ask of you is to think very carefully of your actions, since the previous elders did not, and so were voted out by the people of Columbus or have decided not to rerun. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Do not be pushed into a decision that the people of Columbus wanted you to fight. I was told by one of the elders that he will be fair and consistent during his term. So please do not shut out the people. Understand why the people of Columbus have voted for you. Treasure this historical and beautiful farmstead for Columbus before we pass the point of no return. Instead of pushing out businesses, value the potential this land has for the people who currently live in Columbus. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wanted to speak tonight who did not get a chance to sign up? Okay, hearing none. Next item on the agenda, included in your packet tonight, you will find committee and commission minutes From the library on 319, Police and Fire Commission on 35, Recreation on 226, and Tourism on 34. And then the first item for discussion is stormwater update. Jason, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Just want to give a brief update tonight on the stormwater. I know this has been a topic that's been around for quite a while. The mayor has been organizing kind of some listening sessions, I guess, some working sessions with some of the citizens. Some of those spoke tonight, have been present. So we thought it would be good just to kind of report back, because I know stormwater is something that keeps coming up. You heard that tonight. So the first meeting was held on March 13th. It was posted, it was an open meeting. It was held here at City Hall. A few things that we talked about, just kind of revisiting what's the purpose of the meeting, and that's really to discuss the history and the future of stormwater in the city. Regarding history, we talked about flooding issues, we talked about past studies, we hit on the dam, we talked about the city's past approach to those issues, how we've responded to emergency issues, how we've responded to just capital planning and borrowing for those. We talked a little bit about the previous discussion about stormwater utility. Obviously, the utility is in place, but it's not funded currently, and how that really kind of works right now in its current state. We talked about the last referendum with the opposition to the user charge for the utility to raise funds. We talked a little bit about that. Original proposal was $5 per month per person. And so we kind of just, again, brought the citizens up to speed on what had been done. And then what was done post-referendum. So there was some things, somebody mentioned the comprehensive water study tonight. So we talked a little bit about what kind of came out of that and then what the recommendations were. There was a large project done shortly thereafter with CBDG grant funding. Again, we've talked about other alternative methods. I want people to know that the city has been pursuing those. We've been utilizing those when available to us. We talked about some of the updates that were kind of what I called low-hanging fruit when I proposed some of these changes to you. The stormwater ordinance, some of the permitting things that we wanted to update. Those are works in progress. Those are things that, you know, hopefully we get to you here in the near future. So that was meeting number one. Meeting number two was held on April 24th. We talked a little bit about next steps. What are the upcoming projects the city's investing in stormwater related to their streets project? We have the ordinance and the permits I just mentioned. We have a potential project that the borrowing went in for capital for the culvert removal in Fireman's Park. So those are all things that we're still going forward with. We talked about planning documents. What were the top projects? Some people new to the council may not know, but there was a memo out, I think it was a little over a year ago, taking those top projects out of that study and kind of consolidating them into a plan. Here's the target, here's the focus, here's the priorities as a result of what we did objectively kind of rank those projects. We took a look at the borrowing again, and we took a look at the funding needs and why we struggle with certain things. There's a lot of things pulling at the city, you know, from a capital perspective. You're talking facility planning tonight. That's a big one on the radar. Stormwater obviously has to compete with that. Roads. So we talked a little bit about the public so they can kind of gauge and understand how that fits together. We talked about something that was sustainable. You know, borrowing periodically to do a project when there's a emergency isn't really sustainable, right? And so we talked about does a given funding option makes sense, and in my opinion, I've told the city before, this is a combination of a bunch of funding decisions. You know, whether that's grants or whether that's borrowing or whether that's looking at the stormwater utility again. And so we've kind of coalesced around these two meetings, and we decided that it was good to bring, you know, this kind of update back to you as a group. So if you had questions, you can certainly reach out to me or others at the city. We are talking about the possibility of looking at this referendum that would, again, fund the stormwater utility. There's more data available now. I believe there is currently 123 communities in the state that do this. I think last time when we went to referendum, it was maybe in the 90s, so there was probably 24 more communities who have adopted this through referendum and put a stormwater utility in place. So again, it seems to be the thing that people are doing in lieu of having the ability to grow their levy through growth. And we know they were talking about that tonight. That's a very, I guess, detailed and difficult conversation to have. So those are things that are coming up in this review, in these meetings. We plan to continue to have these meetings going forward. I invite the public to come out. I think it's a great forum to have some discussions about stormwater. I know that the council, you guys, several of you have been there for those discussions as well. So I think at this point, it's just more of an update. We're not looking for anything particular from you tonight other than just to kind of let you know that we're meeting and there's possibly some discussion going forth about bringing this referendum back again in that group, in that setting. So I guess at that point, that was kind of the Cliff version notes of the last two meetings. So I just wanted to open it up to see if anybody had any questions or comments.
Just to kind of go along with what Jason was saying, if you go on the city website, the stormwater study is there. And, you can see all the projects that were identified that need to be addressed. I believe it was 94, correct, total?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, and then at that time, the amount of money was between 15 and 20 million, something like that for all of those. And then you had listed what was probably the top 19 of those, which was at that time was right around 5.5, probably close to 6 now.
Correct.
So, looking at options of revenue in order to address those.
And Joe makes a good point for those of you listening or the new council members. That study was one of the things that we did in response to the feedback we heard at the referendum. So a lot of people in the community had mentioned that we don't support this referendum at this point, even though there's good reasons to do this. You don't have a plan, and you don't know what you're going to do with the money. I don't want to give the city money if I don't know how it's going to be spent or what it's needed for. And so, again, I think that was a thing that the city did well by listening to the constituents and saying, okay, let's move forward. Let's develop this comprehensive, it was a citywide plan. It looked at a lot of infrastructure. It looked at a lot of planning. It looked at a lot of needs. And so it really kind of developed these recommendations for these ordinance revisions. It made recommendations. There's a lot of things in there that are very small projects at minimal cost all the way up to very large, expensive projects. So again, it kind of covers the gamut. So if nobody has looked at that or seen that yet, I welcome people to take a look at that and read it. I think it's very long, so give yourself some time, but there's a lot of good information in there.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Jason? Thank you, Jason. Next item to discuss is the proposed 2024 street maintenance program, and I believe that's also you.
Yes. So this is our annual program for street maintenance, not the capital piece. You budget this every year in your general fund for us to look at different components. In the past, it's been a combination of patching, slurry seal, or seal coating, if you will, crack sealing, and some overlays. So every year it kind of varies, and it kind of varies on needs. So we see the streets change regularly due to the winter cycles. I think last year we felt like we had a lot of areas that we were spending time, labor, and costs in doing pothole patches. So we did a bunch of patching just to kind of eliminate those areas. So Troy and I spent some time riding around evaluating some candidates, and we kind of have the short list in front of you tonight, so we kind of wanted to go through that quick and just kind of let you know what our plan would be and kind of what's within the budget and what our contingencies are. So if you have the spreadsheet in front of you, that's kind of a color-coded, I see it's up on the screen as well. What we've looked at were, there's a couple streets that have been neglected for many, many years and are very poor condition, rated like a 1 on our scale, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. There's 2 streets, Chapel and Thayer. They're both off of North Lewis Street, north of North Lewis Street, kind of towards the old water tower, towards the cemetery. They're not particularly long stretches. We're looking at doing an overlay on those. The utilities underneath those streets are either in relatively good shape or we're not concerned about it. This is considered maintenance. So we reached out and we got some prices for the paving contractor who's actually going to be in town doing our capital project plan, and the cost came back in pretty much where we would expect them to come in. So being this is maintenance, that's one thing that we wanted to try and roll that into and try and get that done at the same time. Ironically, we're paving in the cemetery as part of the cemetery project, and these are right next door. So I think we kind of can kill two birds with one stone here with that, and kind of check those off our list for another 30, 40 years. The next section is blue. Those are the crack seal candidates. We've not been crack sealing the last couple of years. I think that's very important to keep our good roads good so they don't deteriorate. We want to kind of focus and get back into that again. So we did pick out a bunch of streets here that we felt are very warranted to get some money spent on those to kind of get them ready. A lot of times we'll crack seal 1 year, we'll come back, we'll slurry seal or cover those streets up the second year, which is kind of a 1-2 punch, if you will, to kind of extend the life of those streets. So we kind of modestly threw in a bunch of streets there and came up with a cost. And then the kind of the purple or the mauve area on this would be the streets that we talked about seal coating. Again, that's not a pea gravel. It's more of an emulsified stone that's mixed in. So it goes down wet. It's not dusty. It doesn't fly up and break windshields. We have a couple candidates identified here. I believe Dawn Court has been done historically. William Street was done in 2009, so you can see as these streets start to age, this is the right treatment when we get into this kind of age frame. So we have 4 streets there identified. And so if we add up the green category, the blue category, and those 4 in the seal coat category, we come up with about $82,000. Our budget is about $90,000. We have a little contingency back on that, but that does give Troy some flexibility to do some other things other than just these maintenance projects with that maintenance fund. That could go towards some patching or some other things that we come up with. So I think right now that we'd like to take this out to bid. We just wanted to get this in front of the council and just make you aware of kind of what the plan is going forward. The green projects, because they are maintenance related, our intent would be to change order those into the current contractor's project. And we talked to Attorney Johnson about it. Since we're not doing any repair on the road or any reconstruction, it's just considered maintenance, we can do that. So if you support this plan going forward, I would say there will probably be a follow-up change order coming through to kind of get that wrapped into under that contract going forward. So when they're here, they can do that. So that's the main maintenance budget. If you jump down into the lower box, that's the county aid budget. So every year the county does have a program where they contribute part of their labor and equipment to the tune of about $10,000, and then the city matches that with a matching amount, and then we get about $20,000 worth of work accomplished. After some discussion this year, we decided that John Street off of Fuller Street was a candidate that is really in bad condition. Again, that's rated a 1. We're looking to overlay that. We've considered utilities under that as well. We've talked to that, and Troy is filling out the application to submit to the county with that recommendation in there. That total was priced out by the county, so we kind of know where that number is. We did have some carryover funds in that budget last year for the county aid that we did roll over, so that total was $19,600. We're looking at about I don't know what we have here. If we take our portion or their portion of that out, I think we're about $12,000. So we have a little surplus in there. I can tell you historically, the county's number is always usually a little lower. They come back and they bill us for a little bit more, so we want to hold a little contingency back on that. So we didn't want to try and max that budget out. So if we look at that would be our county aid project for this year. And then the last piece on here that we considered maintenance was our fire station parking lot. Earlier this year, we had actually a water service leak over there, and they had to dig up the parking lot, which was in really poor shape anyways. I don't think they made it worse by digging it up. But we decided to go ahead and at least put that parking lot back in a usable condition for whatever length of time the fire department's there, or if they're there for a long time. We just want to get that repaired so it's not a constant issue with water and gravel and sinking. So that is actually factored into the capital borrowing that you approved tonight as well. So it is tacked to the maintenance because we're considering it maintenance, but we did have that funding source. The good news is we had ran the math and thought that was more of a $20,000 project, and when we got some pricing on it, it was confirmed it's much less. So that's great news for the city that that will be accomplished hopefully this year as well. So that's our plan. I guess, are there any questions on it, any concerns or issues? Otherwise, I think Troy and I have kind of prepared to move this forward and get some of the work done.
Alder Rostad?
Yeah, just, I don't know if it's a typo. The first two are Chapel and Thayer. Are they the exact same price with different lengths of road?
Yeah. Good catch. So what I did was we actually sent it out and they gave us one price for both streets, so I just divided it by two. I don't know that we really have to allocate the funds respectively, so that's why they're the same price. It was just a simple division by two.
Alder Lawson?
So for the streets that needed slurry seal that we don't have enough budget for, those are all just as worthy, but we just ran out of money?
Yeah, and you might hear me say this now that you're new to the council and people have already gotten sick of me saying this. I always say that's where the money runs out. So in essence, we did consider these candidates. After we priced it, we felt like there was certainly more work than we had money for. So we're kind of earmarking those for postponing until 25. So what we would do is we would kind of have those as priority next year when we look at this.
So when we kick that to 2025, next year, there's going to be a whole nother set of streets that come up on this though, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean,
are we going to catch up at some point or?
Well, I'll tell you a funny little story if you'll bear with me for a minute. Years ago, I had a council member ask me, well, how much do we need to fix all the roads? And I said, well, how much do you got? And so we went back and forth, and he tasked me with the simple task of coming back at the next meeting with a number. And I to this day, I swear, I can't remember the number, but I think I stood in that podium and said, if you have $64 million, I can fix your roads for you. And he said, well, we don't have that. And I said, okay, well, it's so the dilemma is that there's always a need. Your streets are always deteriorating. You're always trying to push them back uphill and make them better, which we do. And I think the most part, Columbus at the current level of funding, and not to get too digressed into this, has done a really good job of what I call treading water over the last 10, 15 years, right? So we really haven't lost any ground, but we haven't made any significant gains in bettering our streets, with the exception of our state highways. Those don't factor into our road ratings, and we've done an excellent job at getting our state highways redone. We actually have the rest of 73 next year that's going to be redone. So if you factor in the state highways, you're doing a great job. And as far as streets in Columbus, that's kind of the approach that the council has taken, is try and spend this money as much as we can on maintenance to make sure that we're keeping them in the condition we have them and we're not losing any more to be worse. So can we catch up? It'll take a commitment. It'll take extra dollars, and certainly we could. And I know that's been a focus of not just this council, but past councils. I think you guys have done an excellent job. There's communities that don't do what you guys do. So can you do better? Always, sure. But, I mean, that's kind of, I think, the history of what we've been doing.
Any other questions? Comments? Are we comfortable moving this one forward? No, Molly?
I meant yes.
Oh, okay.
I said, do you have any problem? And I'm like, no.
All right. Next on the agenda is discussion of Columbus Police Department assigned vehicle program, and I believe that is Lieutenant Ward going to be speaking about that. Is that correct?
I'll introduce this and go from there. So what you have in front, there's a well thought out, well drafted document on an assigned vehicle program. And I think this correlates well to a lot of the discussions that we've had, or that I've had with the council since coming to the city, is that we have to be creative in our employee attraction and retention. And I think this program should be looked at in that way. Are there questions and things to talk through? No doubt. But I think this comes from a place of Understanding we've had 2 patrol officer vacancies for a while. We continue to have 2 vacancies, and the chief has been creative in identifying some part-time staff that are able to fill those vacancies, but I think we have to continue to be looking for opportunities across the board to be seen as an attractive employer in the current market. And with that, Lieutenant Ward is able to answer any questions or provide any insight on this program for the council.
Does anybody have any questions? Alder Lawson?
Yeah, so I couldn't find this on any recent agenda for the Police and Fire Commission. Has it already been addressed there and being brought forward, or have they not discussed yet?
Your question was about the Police and Fire Commission?
Yep.
So this has not been brought to them. Essentially, this is the very, very beginning of trying to get this going. And the last page is essentially what we're trying to look for. And that's that when these items that we've gotten through the LISO program come up, that we're able to sell them, put those into a dedicated fund to be able to move this forward. So it hasn't been discussed with them. It's been discussed with Matt and the chief. And like I said, this is kind of that first step of once those items come up for sale, or we're able to write them off of our books, that we can put those into a dedicated fund to start this program.
Okay, and I have a couple questions about the program on here. So the LISO fund, it looks like, and just want to confirm I understand this right, that we get free equipment, and then a year later we can sell it, and we can keep the funds and do whatever we want with them? Is that
correct?
Right?
So the program is essentially the government's way of getting rid of excess equipment. 2 police departments, municipalities as a whole are also eligible for the program. And then once the items that are DMIL A, they call it, which is non-controlled equipment from the military, hits a year, the government writes it off their books, and we can do whatever we want with it. If it's a piece of equipment we want to keep, we can keep it. If we choose to sell it, we can sell it, and we keep any funds that come from it.
To just add in to something Lieutenant Ward said there too, oftentimes there's equipment that comes up that he reaches out to the utility, Public Works, to see if this item's a fit or something that they would utilize too. So there's some mutual benefit to not just the police department, but overall city operations as well with this program.
There was a mention of a residency restriction. Can you explain what exactly that would be?
So after conversations with the chief, one of the things we would look at starting would be the assigned vehicles at the PD. Obviously, it's going to take multiple years. That last page or 2 kind of has an idea of what it may look like. Obviously, very dependent based on what we can get for potential resale prices out of the items that we do have. But where we would like this program to go, because I think it's going to help with the recruiting and retention side, is that it actually becomes a take-home vehicle program. And that's something that would have to be significantly discussed as far as residency and how far away they can live, because obviously we don't want them driving, many, many, many miles to go to and from home, wasting those miles not being in the city. So that's where that potential of 15 had come in. I had overlaid a map that kind of put that 15-mile circle out there, and that started including some of Waterloo, I believe it is, Marshall, because if you dropped it to 10, you lose some of the availability of housing for officers, and if you dropped it any lower, then they're essentially stuck to the city and looking, there's not a whole lot that a base level or an entry level officer might be able to afford in the city. So again, that's kind of the down the road where we would like to get it. But those are all things in addition to other policies, protocols, equipment that would have to be discussed as the program progressed.
And one of those things that we would need to discuss is maybe, is there an impact to the insurance policy that we carry for those vehicles then, if they'd be driving them out of the city on a regular basis as a take-home vehicle?
That would probably be a Crystal question. I don't know if it would impact it by taking it out of the city. I know when we take them out of the city now for trainings and whatnot, there's no impact. So I would imagine that there wouldn't be, but I can't, I guess, give you a 100% answer on that without asking Crystal.
Okay. Would this program also work for the part-time officers?
No, this would be full-time only.
Just full-time only.
Yep.
All right. There was also some mention of kind of advancement opportunities and that we don't currently have, things like a K-9 officer, detective, or a school resource officer. Are those additional things that we're also considering in the future here?
I think those are things that could always be considered, but whether or not we have a need for them, the funding for them, or the staffing for them has always been, and I think will always probably be the issue there.
Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. I guess my initial question is, what type of equipment, vehicles are we hoping to receive for our usage? Would this likely be something like a Humvee? Do we think that they have spare, more civilian-type cars, trucks? I'm just very curious about the program.
Are you talking the LISO program or the vehicles we would be trying to get through the program or after those items have been written off the books?
No, the initial decommissions.
So
donated.
they have a plethora of different types. We actually have a civilian Humvee now, which is essentially a truck. We have an F-550 that we've received through them. I've looked at different F-150s. They've got a couple of cars. But where you have to start looking at that is the condition of them. Everything through this program is essentially an as-is. So you're taking a little bit of a chance. So far, we've gotten lucky. Everything that we've received, I've been able to either repair or even without repair, just the resale value of it at that year mark would well offset any shipping costs that we may have incurred. So that I'm certainly looking for them, but the end goal would be find a vehicle that we might be able to use, i.e. that F-550 for a year for moving equipment back and forth, getting things down to the park for National Night Out or whatnot, and then getting rid of that for an equipped squad car, whether it be an Explorer, a Tahoe, a Durango, whatever it may be at the time that we can get, so.
Thank you.
Alder Motive?
I think this is a good program, and I applaud you for thinking outside the box and trying to provide incentives for new employees. One question I have is, I know with my employees that when they drive their company car, even driving it to and from work is considered personal, not business. And so that is actually something that's supposed to be added to their W-2, is the use of stuff for personal. And I'm wondering if that's been looked into. Will that affect pay? Have we budgeted in for that? Is it different for the police force?
So yes, it is different for the police force. I thought I had it in here and I'm trying to find it. The IRS actually considers us to be an exempt agency, provided it's only used to and from work. So if we were to, which there's no conversation of this, but if we were to say you can use it to go to the grocery store, then that would be considered personal use taxable. Because it would simply be to and from work, to and from court, to and from trainings. The IRS exempts us from that, so it would not be.
Okay. Alder Lawson?
So we have some openings for positions right now. Is it possible to reappropriate those funds to start getting an additional squad car now, or is that something that we can't do?
I think right now we have an ongoing recruitment for those patrol officer positions, and I don't want to speak for chief, but my guess is our priority would be to, if we had a candidate that checked the boxes and was a fit, we'd want to prioritize being able to hire that officer. But those are discussions that if as this recruitment goes and closes, that is something that we can come back. But I'll defer to the chief on how to proceed with that, should that happen.
Alder Rostad?
The only question, how do you plan on getting around the disposal of asset policy that we have now, that you have to offer to any city department?
So as far as that, I would not be looking to get around that. If the other departments want to purchase it for a reasonable price, they're welcome to, if it's something that they could use. One of the things we do have to be cautious with of this, I have had conversations with Water and Light, who's helped me with their ramps and stuff to get stuff off. Any equipment that we get has to have a primary use for law enforcement. So there's certain things we can't get even if Water and Light, DPW, wastewater could use it, but the primary function has to be for law enforcement. Now, whether or not I find something that I can use that they could also use and that we can let them, borrow occasionally is different, but the primary function has to be for law enforcement. So as far as the asset disposal, again, I'm not looking to circumvent offering it to other agencies within the city first. We're more looking for the approval to, not have to come to you guys every single time a piece comes up for individual approval to sell, as well as that the funds from the piece are able to go into an account dedicated for this program.
Correct, but I think it has to come to us per the policy, right? Every piece?
You
As
are
wrote
currently
now.
correct. It doesn't mean that Crystal isn't working on that policy in a larger sense, that we couldn't come and draft something in that policy that exempts this program from that review process, should the council feel that's in the city's best interests.
Any other questions, concerns? Are we all comfortable moving this forward? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is discussion of revision to building code, specifically 18-222.
And Mike can speak to this. I'll introduce it as he makes his way up. The Plan Commission reviewed this and approved removing 18-222 from our code. There is some duplication where it's mentioned not only in 18-222, but also in our Chapter 4 zoning, and the Plan Commission will be reviewing Chapter 4 zoning for consistencies at a future meeting.
Yes, and that future Plan Commission meeting is Thursday, so the Plan Commission is right on top of that. But yeah, this 18-222 addresses residential fences. Probably the most concerning part of this is the requirement to get written permission from the adjacent property owner when you want to put a fence up against the property line. And that's just, and Paul can address this as well, that sets up the decision to be very arbitrary, because people really don't need any kind of reason to say no, where it's something, it's a land use, permitted land use right that people can take advantage of. And in my view, the whole having a survey of the property helps to reduce the land use conflicts of not knowing where that line is. So we'll be reviewing, the Plan Commission will be reviewing the zoning code portion on Thursday, but their recommendation was to remove this from the building code.
Anybody have any questions? Comfortable moving this forward? Okay, thank you. Next item is discussion of revisions to operator license ordinance.
I can introduce this. This was at the request at a previous council meeting of not bringing each operator license to council for review and approval, and that if they pass the criminal background investigation that the police department does, that the clerk could issue the license. We have subsequently learned that as of January 1st, 2025, the city will not be granting these licenses moving forward. The state will. So this change will be, if approved, will be in effect from the effective date till the end of this year.
The only ones I'll be granting would be if somebody specifically just wanted to be an operator here in the city. But yeah, the state, you can go anywhere in the state and be an operator come January, so.
Anybody have any questions? Do we still want to move this forward? Do we want to spend the time on this?
Yes.
That's a good point. All right, next item is discussion of revisions to drafted ordinance 791-24 concerning all-terrain vehicles and utility terrain vehicles.
I know there's been a lot of discussion on this item. I just want to start this off, and obviously Paul can chime in here as well. Just to give a little history on where we're at again, previous council, there was direction to look at a model ordinance. The representative from the DNR was here and referenced the Village of Rio as being a best practice ordinance in terms of ATV, UTV. Obviously, there are some conflicting language between the Rio ordinance and issues that were pointed out at the last meeting. But I just kind of wanted to set that table as to where this ordinance came from, why it was recommended, and why it's in front of you.
Mayor Hammer?
Just to reiterate what Matt had said, I mean, for the most part, this really takes care of everything that we wanted on there. The one thing would be hours of operation, which, you know, we've been kind of all over the place on that. I believe the last meeting, city clerk had a couple of other communities or counties of what theirs were. One was no hours of limitation, the other was to till 5 o'clock or something in the morning till 11:59 at night. Again, I mean, you know, the DNR is using this, or had used Rios as a benchmark, and they're really, I mean, what we wanted addressed out of there is addressed in this. In my opinion, we should just concentrate on the hours of operation and move this forward.
Alder Lawson?
I think there's several things in here that should be removed. I don't think it should move forward with just addressing the hours of operation.
Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. Yes, overall, I still love this. I definitely do want to have hours of operation just to encourage there to be less issues specifically at bar time. That's really my only concern on having no hours of operation, that could cause just a setup for accidents at 1, 2 a.m.
Mayor Hammer?
Oh, I'm sorry, forgot.
Alder Finkler?
I agree with Alder Lawson. I think there's more that needs to be reviewed within this than just hours of operation and moving forward. And I think that even though we've continued to review this over and over and over, we can't just take the easy way out and just not review it. I think we need to go back through here and look. So, you know, I would just prefer us to maybe, I recommend we address the hot button items and just have a majority, you know, do you want it removed? Do you not want it removed? And then maybe go through narrowing it down, just some way to get through them, find a way to facilitate the conversation to get through it quicker, but let's just not kind of brush it under the rug. As we have not had any issues with our current ordinance, and I know a lot of the key things that folks want is no open intoxicants, make sure that you have a driver's license or a learner's permit, and if you have a learner's permit, you're with an adult, that no open intoxicants, you know, just those simple items. I feel like we're going way too extreme for the couple concerns that we had.
Attorney Johnson?
I think that following along the path that Alder Finkler just outlined would be the best way to go forward. There are, I read through this again this afternoon, and boy, do I not like reading through this. But I read through this again this afternoon, and there's probably 10 or 12 hot button items. And these are items that have been cause of discussion in the past. And it would seem to me that going through them, either one at a time or taking a couple tonight and taking a couple next meeting and a couple next meeting after that, would be a good idea to just cross them off the list and put it to bed. Some of these might be a 30-second conversation, and some of these might be a 30-minute conversation. I don't really know, but I know that there's a wide variety of opinions among the 7 of you on a couple of these issues. So that would probably, and I can lead the parade if you would like me to, because I have them all outlined as to what I think the hot buttons are. I don't think I've missed any. So when you get to that point.
I was just going to suggest what Paul just said. If you're comfortable letting Paul lead this, I think it's the most efficient way to move through. And then if there is an issue or concern that Paul's red flagging of this hasn't addressed, then bring it up at that time.
All right. Is everybody comfortable with that? Have at it, Paul.
Okay, the first issue that I have is there is language in section 317 that says there's no travel of ATV, UTVs in City of Columbus parks or cemeteries. Bottom of page 3.
Can I address this? Because I think there's a concern out there that when we say parks, there, 2 things come to mind, right? Is that someone's driving an ATV, UTV through a park. And I don't think we want that. We want ATV, UTVs to be able to come to a park and park in a legal parking space that a vehicle could access. And I think what confuses the issue is the word park.
Currently, your streets and vehicle throughfares, however defined, are open as part of the ATV route. So that would be consistent with what Matt said. Driving on the grass is not allowed anywhere within the city because it's not part of the street system. So that's there's probably some, well, there's definitely some truth in what Matt just said, but that's not what this says. This says stay out of the parks and stay out of the cemeteries.
Alder Finkler?
I agree that we want to make sure that it's clear that there can be no ATVs doing hot laps on the grass in the park. However, parking where, or driving where any other vehicle is allowed should be permitted.
Alder Lawson?
Yeah, I think if we have covered that you're not allowed to drive off-road in the city, then this additional number 1 here for any City of Columbus parks could be removed because it's already covered. Cemeteries, I think, people may have a different opinion about that.
Alder Rosted?
I would agree, but Rotary Park, I did see the other day, is marked with a sign, no UTVs are allowed.
I don't believe Rotary Park is within the city limits.
It is not.
Okay,
It's a half-city park, not within the city limits.
okay. And then I would just, because in the park, vehicles are allowed to park on the grass for like the venue. So we'd have to somehow get wording that a UTV or ATV is allowed to park as a vehicle would at a wedding that's not on a paved surface.
But I think what our current ordinance, and Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, it says that anywhere a vehicle is allowed to park, an ATV or UTV is allowed to park. And I
That is
think
correct.
From what I've heard, that is the intent of the council, and I haven't heard any intent outside of that, is to allow a ATV, UTV to park anywhere a vehicle is allowed to legally park.
Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. So I would want to leave the number 1, any City of Columbus parks, but then add to that any City of Columbus parks outside of normal vehicular parking or travel areas? Just trying to be specific.
My preference on all of this, and my best case suggestion, is let the attorney draft the legal language. Tell him what you want for intent and let him figure out how to say it. If that makes sense, because I think we get into the weeds if we try and write legalese, whereas that's why we have a city attorney.
Okay, so parks is okay if you're on the designated vehicular path, so to speak, and not okay if you're doing hot laps on the grass.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay,
Although fun, not allowed.
okay.
I'm sorry, I'm a worrywart. Have we, I hear sirens going off. Sirens going off. Can we get an update on the weather? Is anybody?
There
Okay.
is a tornado warning now for Jefferson County.
Alder Lawson, did you have another question or comment on this section?
Yeah, so, just below that, number 3 there talks about property owned or leased by the city of Columbus. I mean, a city park is owned by the city, so do we need a duplicate?
I was
item?
gonna suggest taking that out, because it's addressed in many other places. And then what do you want to do with cemeteries?
Alder Finkler?
I think cemeteries allow cars to drive through it, so, I mean, have we historically had any problems with ATVs in cemeteries, Chief Weiner? No? I would say let's not make this more difficult than it needs to be.
So, okay.
Alder Rossett?
Do we, St. Jerome's Cemetery, do they follow us? Or is that, so that's their own private? So that one might have to be addressed off of Thayer Street?
If it's not city-owned property, this won't cover that.
Okay.
Alder Motif, did you have? Okay. All right. Next section?
Middle of page 5, cruising. I don't even know what this is, so. Middle of page 5, your favorite, cruising.
What I want to avoid, and there have been a few people who did this in the beginning, and maybe just because it was a novelty, but they were just riding around the blocks on purpose, just aimlessly riding around instead of, going from the grocery store to home, and I don't want that to occur.
Alder Finkler?
My thoughts on this is it needs to go. I think this is, again, a little bit more than it needs to be. And also, there are plenty of cars that do this, and we don't do anything about that. I mean, I just think, I don't know. I just think we have better things to worry about than this. I do enjoy riding my motorcycle around town, and what's the difference? And it sounds like the hail's getting bigger.
Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. I'm with Motive on this one for cruising. It was quite a problem early on my block. It seemed to have slowed down a good bit, but I definitely want the language in there. I don't want the police to actually be looking for it. It's something that when it happens and it's ongoing, then it's a problem.
Alder Lawson?
I'm just curious, do we have a current cruising ordinance? No. So if we're kind of following the normal rules of the road, then why would we add one for this?
You guys speak up down there. Stand down there with a hail. I'll talk louder too.
I would tend to agree with Alders Finkler and Lawson. I think that if we're not applying this equally to all vehicles on the road, it's unnecessarily and unfairly targeting one type of driver.
So how many do we have that want the cruising? And how, like, so we can just like decide, you know, where we're going?
I'm not gonna fight about it, I'm in the minority and I'm okay with that.
Okay. So no to cruising?
Removed.
A nuisance.
Next, I'm not sure why, but there was conversation last time about yield to traffic and pedestrians. Top of page 6. All terrain and U-terrain vehicles and utility terrain vehicles shall yield to vehicular traffic and pedestrian movement. That's the language.
Alder Lawson?
Yeah, I remember bringing this up because it contradicts the line above it. If we're following the rules of the road, you come to a four-way stop, and in a UTV, you should have the same right-of-way as any other vehicle at that four-way stop.
Alder Finkler?
I agree that if ATVs and UTVs have to follow the rules of the road, we shouldn't need this. I think having ATVs going slower, stopping for other traffic and pedestrians outside of the requirements for a car actually brings more of a risk than if they just follow the way all the cars operate.
Okay, any other thoughts on this one? Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. I'm leaning towards agreement, especially with other traffic, that it'll be more confusing if they have to wait and when other people are thinking that everyone's having their own turn at a stoplight or a stop sign.
Removed. Removed.
What's the next one?
Couple lines down, driver's license required. Is that a yes? I thought that was a pretty unanimous yes last time.
However, I think we should have a discussion on what exactly does that mean. Does that mean a learner's permit with a parent is allowed, like a car, or do you need to have a full-blown driver's license?
I thought we had learner's permit in here.
I thought we did too. So I just want to make sure, because I know there's been like we've gone back and forth a little bit on that. I propose that learner's permit is, the same laws apply, that if, your parent has to be with you if you have a learner's permit, or a full-blown driver's license.
Alder Lawson?
Yeah, I agree. I think, I didn't see anywhere where it talked about learner's permit, but a license or permit and same rules of the road should apply for the permitted driver.
Well, okay, so this wasn't a hot button, but it is now. Because you have language that says no person who is under 16 may operate an ATV on a roadway or route within the city of Columbus.
Where are you finding that?
That is in the middle of page 9. You have a paragraph that says that for ATV, and you have a companion paragraph that says that for UTV.
I'm sure.
If you have a learner's permit, you are going to be there's a strong chance you will be under the age of 16.
And I think that's where we had the conversation, was
Yeah.
the age.
I'm sure we said learner's permit with parents,
Yeah.
so we would just need to tweak that.
Is anybody not okay with learner's permit with parent?
There is also certain circumstances where you can drive a UTV and an ATV at the age of 12 with certain
That's
parental guidance.
only with hunting and fishing and it's off-road.
But it doesn't say off-road.
That's the state law.
In this, it doesn't.
But if
Well,
we
we're
make
talking
it
about city
learners,
streets, so There's,
Yes, you're
we're not talking about trails.
You're talking about routes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if we make it learner's permit, or driver's license, that eliminates that conversation
We
altogether.
don't need the age restriction at all.
It doesn't
at that
matter,
point.
right.
Right, because you have to be 15 and a half to get the learner's permit.
Yeah.
Or is it 15 now?
15
Yeah.
now, they give you a year.
Yeah.
So you want it to say 16 unless you have a DOT authorized learner's permit.
Perfectamundo.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, good, hours of operation.
I've got a question before we move on from that one.
Yep.
So there is also a requirement for anyone born after, what is it, like 1988 or something like that, to have a ATV safety course completed? Are we gonna piggyback on that? And so someone, although they're 16 and they have a license, they'd also need that safety course?
That's under the state law, so we
That's
don't
under the
need to.
state law, which is incorporated into this.
So they would have to have?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And I had one before we get to the hours also. It was on page 10, the C to sub B, for the use of headgear. That's the little part where it says, exceptions, the person traveling for the purposes of hunting or fishing has to be a minimum of 12 years of age. And I know that's for, if they are like in, parks or what have you, but I just thought that was a sentence we should get rid of since it'll confuse people. And I don't want little kids going fishing on their ATVs without helmets.
I think my opinion on that one is B through D should be removed. Just leave it at anyone under 18 needs to have a helmet.
Agree.
Does it have to be in there per 2333? The statute, doesn't the state require it?
No.
The helmet?
No.
I think we just knocked off another hot button for
You
you.
did.
All right, now back to the dreaded hours of operation. You
It's the
good,
last
Attorney
one I had.
Johnson? Alder Finkler? None.
I would say none.
I personally think if we're going to have them, we need to at least mirror what our closest neighbors are doing and have it until midnight. There's no reason we should be stopping people at 9 PM, I don't think. Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I also prefer to simply match Alba for their hours.
So does anyone know, does Alba have the same disclaimer about to and from your residence? Because, I mean, essentially that means anytime. Because I can be out 3 in the morning and say, I'm going to or from my residence.
Yeah, that's bad language for that very reason.
Alder Motive?
I think it would be fine to move it up to bar time. I don't think 9 o'clock is.
Alder Rosset?
I would support no hours operation.
Alder Finkler?
I think something that we're losing track of is, as we're concentrating on bar time and outside, like Alba and stuff like that, we're losing track of the fact of what if somebody works shift work and wants to take their ATV to work, and you're restricting them from being able to do that. So we shouldn't be punishing people for some potential bad eggs. We're going to not allow drunk driving, just like any other car. We're not going to allow open intoxicants, just like any other car. I think if somebody wants to responsibly drive an ATV at the speed limit, just like a vehicle or a motorcycle, they should be able to at any time.
It kind of sounds like the general consensus is none.
None.
Where's
bottom of page 8. So just remove the whole section. The open intox I didn't think was an issue.
No. Does anybody want open
See, now that wasn't so hard.
Are we done?
I'm done.
Does any?
I'm not done.
Alder Lawson.
So we have places in here, like, for instance, on page 8, 10, page 8, number 10, operation restrictions. A, for instance, talks about operating on the extreme right side of the roadway. So if we're telling people in one area, it's the regular rules of the road, this kind of conflicts with that.
That's, I'm 99% certain that's exactly what chapter 23 language is.
To ride on the right side of the road?
Yes.
Alder Reed?
Well, thank you. I would definitely want to keep that language in. I don't know that we're expecting the ATVs to always be at road speed, and that just makes things a lot simpler and safer for the larger vehicles trying to pass them.
Alder Finkler.
I think within city limits, ATVs will always be able to go the 25 miles per hour. So I think where I have bigger concerns is I see many moms out there with jogging strollers on the right side of the road because they do not fit very well on a sidewalk, or folks walking with walking sticks because they have a little bit more space on the right side of the road. So I think it is actually more dangerous to have the ATVs on the right side of the road with parked vehicles going in and out and pedestrians, that I think that we should just keep it simple, and ATVs should be driving like a normal car. Everything they do should be like a normal car.
Alder Lawson.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm concerned too about the folks in the ATV or UTV, if they're on the extreme right, someone trying to pass them, and it being an unsafe situation.
So remove A.
Yes.
10A.
C is kind of a duplicate of something we talked about before about yielding the right of way to other vehicular traffic, which I think we agreed should be removed.
I have a question. So are we still trying to shoehorn RIOs in for us, or do we take the hot button items that we have discussed already, and if we have any other hot button items to add on, and have that added to our current ordinance, and maybe can leverage some of the language from here for those items, but not necessarily try to boil the ocean with RIO's whole ordinance when we could just be adding the pieces we care about to ours?
No, you can't do that.
We can't? We can't add to our ordinance? We have to adopt RIO?
No, and no. So what you have in front of you and what you are looking at is RIO with many already modifications made by you over the course of the last several weeks. If you want to go back to what Columbus had, Columbus's ordinance said, we adopt state law, period. We are now done. So you can't really go back to that because you're very far afield from that with all of the things that we've just talked about in the last half hour. So the text that you have in front of you is going to be your starting point, whether you like it or not. Or else we're going to go back and just throw this whole thing out the door and start over, which I would highly recommend that you do not do. You're about 98% of the way right now, so I would urge you to not go back to zero. You can add and subtract whatever you like, but this is going to be your base, and this is going to be your template as we go forward. Otherwise, I'll just go back to where we were and throw this whole thing away and say, we're adopting state law except, and then by the time you guys are done, you will have more exceptions than what the law is.
Yep.
My suggestion at this point is for Paul to make these edits and bring it back to the May 21st COW. Make sure we're on the right page, or right direction.
Is everybody comfortable with that? Okay. All right, next item is discussion of the deer park at Fireman's Park.
Work to put a memo together on this. I think there's been public comment about the condition of the 2 deer. There's been some, I think, I was contacted by a news station about that we were eliminating the deer park and wanted to interview me. And I wasn't aware that that decision had been made by anyone. So what we've done is kind of structured kind of what the operational costs are, what the costs of acquiring additional deer is, and then if there is a direction to discontinue the deer park, kind of what that would look like and what we would need to do for a 10-year period of time following that decision. So I think we're looking for some direction into what to bring back for the May 21st council meeting.
I totally do not support this. I don't think we should have it. I think we should finish out our 10-year term, let the animals become deceased because they won't do well going back into the wild at this point, but then we should end it.
Can I just get a little bit of background on where we have to keep the existing deer pen for 10 years?
So Troy can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's a DNR requirement. Basically, as deer pass away, we have to bury them within the site. And then there's a requirement that we have to maintain that as a deer pen for 10 years following that time.
Burial.
Yeah, that burial.
Tear down the fence, any animal can come and dig up that animal.
Okay.
Disease with C.O.W. or, I mean, not what, you still have to have that safe card.
Okay.
For the same reason, we're not able to move the current deer because of the CWD regulations. Am I right there, Troy?
You both had your lights on and then turned them off, did you?
No, the answer is.
Okay. Paul?
What?
Did you? Your lights
I'm
also
sorry.
on.
I'm still rocking from the last one.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns on this? Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. So then would we be leaning towards a couple of goats in the interim?
I think in the interim, I think the challenge that staff has presented to me is that if we don't have deer there, we need something to maintain the grass, or it's going to become an overgrown, penned-in challenge from a maintenance standpoint. Mowing the area, it's not even ground, kind of rough terrain to access. The suggestion of goats seemed to make sense, and that a lot of communities are using them to manage invasives, graze, do different things. I think we would need to, if that's the direction, we'd have roughly a week to kind of find what options are out there in terms of acquiring goats, renting goats, and bring that information back for the council.
Alder Finkler?
I just have a question. So is the decision that we need to make, and I know we don't make any decisions in COW, so we'll have to send it to council, but is it that we are going to proceed with euthanasia or dispatching, I'm not sure what is the politically correct way of putting it, the deer that are now there and replacing them with goats, or is a decision on what to do when those deer pass away? I guess I'm a little confused at what's happening now because we have 2 deer there. So if we decide to not get more deer, does that mean we're also deciding to euthanize the deer that are there and replacing them with goats? Like, why don't we make this decision when they pass away and we have to decide to replace or get goats?
I think the concern's twofold. There's euthanasia is an option. It's the DNR's recommended direction as deer age and get to a point near the end of their life. Can also let them kind of go on their own as time allows. I think the concern becomes there's 2 deer now. If we go down to 1, is that a humane situation for only 1 deer to be isolated in a pen by themselves? And again, we don't have great alternatives here. So I think it's a multi-layered. If we're not going to continue the deer park, how do we address end of life for the deer? And then what becomes of this area after that point?
Other motive?
I don't support euthanasia of the deer. If one passes naturally, maybe it's time to revisit the other one if they will be living a horrible life without their mate. But I think at this point, we let it go naturally.
Alder Finkler?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, unless the deer is suffering, and then I think that's a different conversation. But I think that we shouldn't be talking about this until we get to the point where we have no deer. I guess I don't know if this was spurred by community concerns over the deer and we wanted to address it, but I guess I just don't know, other than just probably making a lot of people mad if we just euthanize some deer too. Like, I think no matter which way you slice this, there's gonna be a problem. So I think that we should be addressing it when the time comes.
Mayor Hammer?
Mike was.
Okay.
Is the 19-year-old deer having health issues now?
No, still eating.
Okay.
Mayor Hammer?
So, one of the things that need to discuss is, do we want to continue to have deer or not? Once you make that determination, that'll make the determination of what you want to do going forward. And I think that's what we need to look at is, do we want to continue having deer or do we not want to continue having deer?
Just more of a planning stage.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a 19-year-old and a 12-year-old. The 19-year-old, average lifespan of about captive deer is 10 to 12 years. Doing pretty good.
Yeah.
The other carrots, take care of, it's just planning what we want to do.
And I'll add, this is a unique situation. I'm not aware of this being a regular occurrence in municipalities.
Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I agree that it makes sense to have a conversation, just so we won't be left with one very lonely deer. I have no idea if deer and goats can be compatible. Possibly that would be delightful. Some research would need to be done. So yeah, I agree that we probably should have a quick talk tonight on, do we want to stay with deer or not deer? Probably not bears.
Alder Motive?
I do not want to replace the deer. I don't think they're a good fit, and I think it's cruel. But I also don't think we should euthanize unless there's a medical issue.
Alder Rostow?
I guess I would like to get prices before I make a decision on, like, the goats. Because goats could be more expensive.
We did get a quote of Nick at work, some people that raise goats, and it was like $200 a quote.
Would we, I think it would just be fair to get the number, and then we could put a plan into place. When X, Y, and Z happen, we're gonna go to Plan A. That'd be my suggestion.
Alder Finkler?
Is it safe for me to make the assumption that these deer cannot be relocated to another deer farm because of CWD?
I'd be careful how I say that. We're in the CWD management zone, and so therefore deer cannot be transported within that zone. Did I get that right?
Yes, captive deer.
And I'm wondering, just because if one passes away, instead of just having to end the other one's life, you could make it happy and, you know, send it to another deer park.
Not same partners.
Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. I suppose if we're looking at goats, we have so many choices. We can get very fancy. I mean, there's goats for $100, there's goats for $500. It depends what route we'd like to take.
I was just gonna say not fainting.
Oh,
as
anything
much
but
as-
that.
as much as I would like that, but I feel like they will be tormented.
They will. Anything but fainting, please.
Do you have enough information to move forward with at this time, Matt?
What I would intend is to bring back, potentially as soon as May 21st, a plan for the eventual closure of the deer park and lay out what our recommended options are for you to review and approve, so that staff has something to go by when those instances occur.
Is that a direction everybody's comfortable with? Is that fair?
meeting? That'd be the plan.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you. Next item is discussion of proposal from Civic Plus for agenda management software.
Civic Plus is our current website provider. They also manage our Munich code, so our ordinances as they're posted online. We've obtained a quote from them, initial implementation cost of $5,260 with a recurring annual fee of $37.60. This would cover up to 5 meeting bodies, so we've identified Council, Committee of the Whole, Utility Commission, Plan Commission, Community Development Authority as a starting point. And then the idea would be is to get those 5 commissions under this software and staff trained on how it works, and then we can add additional meeting bodies and plan for that in the 2025 budget process. So what this does is it's a time savings for staff, specifically the city clerk, in terms of compiling and putting together the packet. It adds, this is kind of the model process. There are different software products, but most communities have went to a agenda management software like this.
Does anybody have any questions or concerns for Matt? Alder Lawson?
Yeah, so, why couldn't we go forward with this and do all of the boards and commissions? And one of the reasons I'm asking is, I know that there's additional fee, but it would kind of optimize, you know, that training that they're going to provide it as a one-time thing and not have to repay for that.
I'm happy to reach out to them and get that quote provided for the next council meeting. I think either option, there's pluses and minuses. The one thing I'd want some input on is when we say all meeting bodies, there are commissions that meet like once, or what I would try and, for the cost, I would try and get it to commissions or committees that meet monthly, at least monthly. If they're meeting more than monthly, great, but if it's 3 or 4 times a year, I think we've got to weigh the cost of doing that, and those are usually traditionally pretty easy. I'm speaking for Susan now, but I think those are the agendas that are a lot easier to post and put out than some of the more complex that have multiple staff contributing to.
Alder Finkler?
Yeah, I would be okay with the approach that you're taking, Matt, for at least meet monthly, because I think we do need to make sure that we're seeing some cost benefit out of this. So I agree with that.
Alder Lawson?
There's also mention of OCRing historical agendas. At what point does that happen, and are they able to accommodate any type of, or the amount of record retention that we're required to have?
Again, it's a good question. I can follow up and ask them, be prepared to answer at the next meeting.
Any other questions? Comfortable moving forward to look at a couple of different options? Okay, thank you. Next item, discussion of moving date of August 6th council meeting due to National Night Out.
Again, historically, the council has rescheduled their first meeting in August to allow for attendance at National Night Out, recommending, if the council is inclined to do that, to move to Monday, August 5th.
Anybody got any questions? Does that work for everybody? Alder Finkler?
That's a good plug for everybody to put August 6th on their calendar for National Night Out and don't make plans for them.
Are we all comfortable switching that date, moving that forward for a vote? Okay. Next item is to convene to closed session per 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investment of public funds, or conducting other public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically to negotiate with Lamps Landing LLC related to 1400 Park Avenue. And I would take a motion for the same.
Molly had her light on first.
Oh, go ahead.
We'll do motions before questions.
Okay.
Alder Motif will make a motion to move to closed session as per 19851E.
I'll second.
Okay. Alder Finkler?
Yeah, I just have a question of the reasoning behind this being a closed session. It says to negotiate with Lamps Landing. So I just want to know exactly what we're negotiating with Lamps Landing that meets the closed meeting requirements. I'm just worried because I obviously know it's in the packet, but I'm just curious what makes it closed.
There are, I don't know what the discussion will be, but the potential is strong for there to be things that are discussed that are either going to remain private amongst the council and private amongst Mr. Lamp, or that might be discussed that would be proprietary as part of the conversation, so that once it's put out in the public, it screws up his plans, because we don't know what they are yet. So that's the best answer I can give you as we sit here right now. The purpose of this closed session is generally to not divulge things to the public at a preliminary stage, and as the negotiations go forward, then more things become public. So seeing that this is your first meeting, that's the best answer that I can give you.
I would argue that this is not appropriate for closed session because this is reviewing documentation that is similar to what we would review in an RFP response, and those were public. So they are not competing with anybody as of right now. We are in good faith negotiations, from what I understand, with them. So how are we competing? And this is competitive or bargaining.
I would just say, in my 6 years in Middleton, I sat in many of these same sessions in closed session. This is the standard practice. No action will be taken. Any action will be taken in open session.
I'm just really not comfortable with this. I know you've probably sat in a lot of sessions, but in reviewing the information that's here for this closed session, I don't see how any of it is competitive or negotiation, and I think it is not being transparent for the citizens who have also seen the proposals that have already been out there. I am curious as to, I just don't feel this fits, and I'm just not comfortable with it, and I don't know if there's more research that needs to be done and this needs to be pushed out to a next one. I don't know how others are feeling, but I'm just not comfortable.
I'm feeling like we don't know everything that's going to be discussed, and
I don't think that's a good enough reason.
hey, I listened to you, you listened to me.
You don't have to go rude right
We
away.
don't know everything that's going to be discussed, and in order to protect those conversations, we need to be in a closed session. If there are things that are not private, then we can discuss them outside afterwards.
Alder Lawson.
Is the intent to truly negotiate with Lamps Landing, what's been presented in the packet? Because if that's the case, then I could see it being in closed session.
I don't know, and I think that's my question, Amy, and I think that's what I am most concerned about, is it's not clear to me what is negotiations, and I don't think it's fair to say in the act of transparency that we may or may not have a conversation that we may or may not be able to have. I think if it gets to that point, then we say we need to move this to closed session. But I don't think we should err on the side of closed session, and then if nothing closed session happens in that meeting, okay. But if something does, okay, what if we go and we meet and we're in closed session and that whole entire meeting should have been an open session? Then we have broke open meeting laws right there instead of stopping conversation and moving it to closed session when needed. I'm just trying to be the better safe than sorry route here.
Attorney Johnson, are we breaking any laws by going into closed session?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Then there is a motion with a first and a second. Can we take a roll call vote on it, please?
Yes. Please remember to wait until I call on you to speak. Could I have a roll call vote, Susan?
Finkler,
Nay.
Reed,
Nay.
Relke,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Motive,
Aye.
Hammer,
Aye.
Rosted.
Nay.
4 ayes, 3 nays.
We are in closed session at this time. We will not be returning to the air tonight. Thank you very much.